What's going on, everybody? It's your boy back with another Reaction video, and I will be reacting to Warhammer 40k Fire Warrior review. This is from Mandalore Gaming. This is also a request from wow, where did that come from? I had a name, man, I completely just blanked out. I was like, right, Alpha Shocker. He recommended that I take a look at this. You said the first game, so I'm assuming this is it because this is the first review that Mandalore Gaming did back in 2018 of these games. At least it was the first one that I saw when he posted. Well, it was the first one that was uploaded because that had this one had the earliest date. So I'm assuming this is the first game. I haven't played any of these games. I've heard of them, and I reacted to the Space Marines trailer, which is a Warhammer 40k game. So I know of the games, I know of these older games, but I've never actually played them. But we're gonna get into this one. Let's see what Mandalore Gaming got to say. So here we go.
Weakness detected in arms.
Is he just screaming at them? What is that?
The Warhammer 40,000 franchise has been around over 30 years, and the games have never been far behind. With games like Space Crusade and Chaos Gate, they were doing well. The trend of making bank and good reviews in their strategy games kept going until fairly recently. That's when things got a little different. So the brand had done well with tactical and strategy games. However, despite being a perfect setting for it, they never made an FPS game. Unless you count Space Hulk Vengeance of the Blood Angels, and I don't. That's still more of a tactical game. It wouldn't be until 2003 that a true 40k first-person shooter was made. It would also be the only 40k FPS game for roughly the next 15 years. This was Fire Warrior. And right from the get-go, there's a lot strange about this. PlayStation 2 outlets were very positive on the game. Uncomfortably so. It was to the point I thought it was only on PS2, but no, it got a release on PC as well. See, it's right there. The only reason I found out was because a guy emailed me about it. After a quick search, it turns out the PC version's reviews were abysmal compared to the PS2. As far as I know, this isn't sold digitally either. On top of all of that, getting the game to start on a modern system is a challenge, and if you do, here's your in-game options.
Damn,
audio levels. That's it. So first of
So
all, I'm going to
that's
show
all
you
you
how to make
need.
this game playable at all. That's still a decision you might regret, but I can't stop you. First of all, the game has a launcher. Unfortunately, it hasn't been seen by modern human beings. This is because it appears to have issues with DirectX versions past date, which in computer years is basically going back to the fall of Rome. You could go back to that, or you can be a genius and just launch the exe
Sound like
from
music
CD
from
or your image. You don't even need compatibility mode, so easy, right? Well, almost. Remember, the game has no in-game settings menu. It typically runs at a lower resolution, and I can't show you it. Whenever I try to put a clip of it in, it crashes a video editor, so this is the fixed version. Now, I haven't seen the launcher, but I've heard some nasty rumors about it. The good ones at least say that you could have changed your settings in it, so that means it must make a config file. After digging around, I found out how to make one in Notepad. These values are self-explanatory for the most part. Then I just save it next to the exe and it's good to go. At least that's what I thought.
The standard carbine of the town fires plasma pulse-burst ammunition identical to that of the standard rifle.
I can't deal with this crackling. Maybe you were around back in the day when sound cards are really being pushed, and this is kind of a part of that. At first, I thought I could force it to use EAX, but that didn't help. Firewar uses some kind of software effects, but maybe they didn't install right. Either way, I've got to get rid of them. So now the game has lost all the...
Ain't no way in hell. If I gotta go through all this to play a fucking game, this is why some games, some of the stuff that I've heard, like people I know that went through back in the day trying to play PC games, I was like, man, I definitely wouldn't have played anywhere near as many games as I played when I was a kid, or hell, and even into my young adult life. if I had to play on a PC. When I played games on a PC, when we got one when I was 14, I think I was turning 15. When I was 14, I was still 14. And the only games I played was games that I found on like websites, and they were point and click, like mystery games and puzzle games. That's all I played on there, and on the PC. And that was it. Was no, and then I did play like a little bit later on. I played them like Adult Swim games. I think it was like a something unicorn game, and then they had like Ed and Eddie game or a Courage Cowardly Dog game on there. Mostly, I remember I used to look up shit, Dragon Ball Z pictures because people would post them on forums because they didn't have a very good like search engine back then. So it's like, hey, you find this website. Someone at school gave me a bunch of websites. I go to the website and then they at the bottom they have other websites you can go to see other people's art that people made up or talking about Dragon Ball Z or other animes.
Go effects, but the audio is crisp and clear.
The lightweight carbine is a rapid-fire weapon and also mounts a photon grenade before they were halted in a
The
Dallas
game actually looks
and a
pretty
truce
good.
declared.
Much better. So Fire Warrior is running. That's a good start. I load up the tutorial, which is surprisingly somber. It's nearly dead silent.
It's kind of
Okay, let's see the range.
ominous. Wait, is that an actual person you're shooting?
Oh my god, this weapon spread. The aiming also feels a bit like being in a bubble of jello.
Oh, okay, it's like
This is especially weird because these are
hologram or
Tau
some
weapons,
shit.
which means I need to talk about Warhammer
It's the
a little
future.
bit. If you played with toys and action figures, you may have known about or played with that kid. You never wanted to play with that kid. Nobody did. That kid always had to be the best, and he'd make up rules to do so. My Iron Man is coming to fight you. Nuh-uh, because my John Cena has an Iron Man force field. This child grew up to work at Games Workshop. An entire school bus of these kids did, and they made their own factions for the setting. These kids were kept in check by an entity that I'm going to call the Supreme Kid. The Supreme Kid will somewhat balance the other factions, but make sure that his favoritist is the most important. He will smite down or devour the creations of lesser kids who challenge him. In the end, only he will remain. That should sum up why the setting is so ridiculous. I figure that most people watching this know at bare minimum that 40k is grimdark and sci-fi. Or maybe space fantasy would be a better description. If you know nothing about the setting, just picture this. Hulk Hogan is in a cathedral, and he's fighting the devil. Hogan is wearing about 50 trucks worth of metal. Also, the cathedral is the size of Rhode Island, and in space. Hulk Hogan is the Imperium of Man. They're the humans in this setting, and probably the most popular faction for that reason.
Yeah, who drew
At
this?
this time, the setting didn't really have good guys, just lesser shades of evil. The Imperium is a bunch of fascist fanatics, but if you're a human, they're your best chance for being alive for a while. When the Tau were released in 2001, they were the good faction. Non-Tau players tended to dislike them for this, among other reasons. Their main trait was having very accurate, long-range weapons, and you know what? These are not those weapons. I don't know how to describe it other than the gun is drunk. I had to go back to the config and enable the auto-aim that I had turned off. Auto-aim being on is the default setting. The cone of fire narrows a bit and the weapon tracks your target, and it's still pretty atrocious.
Yeah, it looks pretty bad.
This is the moment that I started to realize what I was in for, but I wasn't really ready. This is one of those games you can't play on hard until you beat it on normal, so that's what I'm stuck with. Let's check it out. Fire Warrior starts off with a cutscene of something happening. I'm not really sure what, but before you can find out, the Space Marines blow it apart.
Space Marines!
They kidnap somebody, and the game begins.
I remember how nervous I was before mine, that he helped me get ready.
I can't hear
Yeah, I
what
was about to
he's
say,
saying.
excuse me?
It's like the voice actor is actually calling from China. There's no way to change this.
What is with the
Is that
audio?
him talking? Whoa, what?
Oh, shit.
As far as games made
Wow.
after 2000 go, I think Fire Warrior might have one of the strangest soundscapes of all. I've played games that use stock sounds, but never just a phone dial. The thing is, at least the phone dial sound is clear. A lot of levels will just have these
it's
alarms
free.
blaring half the time.
Royalty free.
Please, just stop them. When the game gets quiet, that's when you realize why it was so loud. To hide all the sounds.
I was like, damn, that is loud.
What did he say?
We said
To give you an idea
saline.
of how bad the weapon sounds are,
fuck?
one of the most powerful sounding weapons in the game uses a stock machine gun sound. Of course, like almost every other weapon in the game, the spread on it is horrible.
Damn.
At several points I couldn't tell what was happening because the sounds were looping over each other.
Okay. What?
Failing? Does this sound like being an event or opening a bag of chips? I understand working on a budget, but when you're taking field recordings of people opening snacks in a movie theater, it's not working out. Okay, the sounds are abysmal. I can accept that.
Yeah,
But
that's
why does
horrible.
every Imperial Guardsman say that it's quiet?
It's quiet. Too cool. What the fuck? He had a chainsaw? He have no chainsaw sword, yeah. Just take. no technique, no skill. Just. Why guess you had chainsaw sword?
I am going to lose my goddamn mind.
Fight it. You don't just use it like a damn katana. Wow, this is getting annoying. Is it 4? What was that? Like 5? Was it 4 stars? 5 stars?
I'm only 15 minutes into the game and
Wow.
I can't remember what's happening. Wait, I beat it? 14 minutes? That felt like 14 weeks. To summarize it up, I'm just not very happy with the sound. Let's move on. The game is about as standard as it gets for first-person shooters. You go through multiple linear levels, find new weapons, and kill enemies. What I find interesting is that it's a kind of transitional shooter. Easy example, if you want to open the magenta door, you need to find the magenta key. Colored keys were a staple of 90s FPS games because, well, they make sense. You don't need a special narrative to understand what's happening. You see the blue door, you need the blue key. Easy. This practice largely went extinct in the early 2000s. With a big push for story in games, obstacles would have to be narrative related. Having a color-coded door and key was now seen as being too arcadey. Having the red door was now just seen as lazy. Okay, so Fire Warrior is more of a 90s game. After all, levels have a stats counter. From time to time you'll complete an additional task, and I'm not sure what they are because the game never really tells you. That checks out. There are also plenty of health packs, but wait a minute, something is still happening to my health. Man, it's just on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember what it is. Okay, so I've had to think about it a little bit, and it's a way worse Halo. I know all the advertisements that would kill Halo, but it's just a worse version of that game. You have to wonder how you can take a formula that was proven to work on a console like Halo and mess it up somehow. Then I looked at the games they were making before and during this, and their train simulators and iToy games, and it's like, oh, this makes sense now. To give the game
No
some
wonder
credit,
they said it was
has a
so
variety
good.
of 40k weapons. There are a lot of standard weapons you'd expect, like a sniper rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun, but there are some weapons that are a little more unique. Chargeable plasma guns, a plasma pistol, a melta-gun, the list goes on.
Well, that
There's
actually
about a
looks
dozen
kinda
weapons
cool.
to choose from. My favorite ended up being the bolter because, well, they got it right.
Damn. Just turn them into
You also
red
carry
mist.
a sword, but it might as well be a spoon. It's
Red
useless.
chunks. Is he hitting them with the handle? Like what the like he holding a blade?
It has close to no reach and it barely does any damage. I can't even imagine how bad this is on hard. I have three main issues
So
with
is he supposed to be
weapons.
spinning
The first
it?
is that several of them are redundant. The stub rifle is a good medium-range weapon with a muzzle flash that looks like a solar flare. But the las gun does basically the same thing. The bolter is fun to use, but then there's a chaos bolter which fires a little bit faster and maybe does less damage. I can't tell because, you know, it's a bolter. If you don't know the lore, it fires 75 caliber rocket-propelled explosive bricks that were blessed in a church. The chaos bolter does the same thing
Okay.
except, I don't know, the rounds are blessed at a Marilyn Manson concert. My second issue is that you can only hold 2 guns. Except in rare occasions, you're only going to find ammo for your weapons on dead enemies. So putting down a rifle in exchange for a pistol with only 6 shots doesn't make any sense. Doing that discourages a player from experimenting, but it gets even worse than that. One of the weapons you're holding has to be a Tau weapon, and they're terrible. So even if you find 2 weapons you really like, you have to choose one because one of them will have to be a Tau weapon. To make matters worse, you don't get the second weapon, the carbine, until the midpoint of the game. That means you're only getting to choose
Oh,
one
that
weapon
just
for
looks
most
like
of the
Master
game.
Chief, right?
But there is the Tau cannon. Also, look out for death animations. It's like they all want to win an Emmy. So holding off for that seems good, except this scenario doesn't happen a lot. By this point in the game, you're going to be fighting some of the spongiest enemies around. Having this would have been great in some of the earlier levels when there were swarms of guardsmen. Here, it's just wasted. You do get a rail rifle in the last levels of the game, and this is when Tau weapons are good. The rail rifle can zap a bad man right into the Shadow Realm.
Oh, damn. He's just like disappeared. Does that teleport them to hell?
Yeah, me too. It is not a prize worth waiting for, and I'll come back to why. While I addressed it earlier, the biggest problem is the spread and aiming system. It doesn't matter if auto aim is off or on, these things go all over the place. Even when it's on, sometimes it won't lock on right. It also has a tendency to lock on to nothing before going to the right target. You might be thinking it looks so obnoxious, you should just turn it off, and I would, but this is the better option, even if that result makes the game play like a buggy rail shooter. This is with it on, and the rounds are still going way outside the reticle. Remember, this is the home-in cheat mode. If all the enemies were at mid-range, or I could always carry a long-range weapon, then I could turn it off. It's those long-range fights that make it a complete pain, because not everyone's running up to you with a chainsaw. Wait, what's wrong with his head?
Is he blind?
Well, I'm sure it's in the codex somewhere, but we don't have time for that.
Like he has a
Weapons
gun
being buggy
too.
does fit the theme of the game, which is being buggy. From time to time, enemies will dream of a world of peace, and then they stop fighting. This wasn't a one-time ordeal. This would happen multiple times with multiple enemies. The enemies have an even higher tendency of going bonkers if you have allies around. Early in the game, there's a boss fight with a Valkyrie aircraft. Weapons didn't seem to affect it much. I knew you had to disable the intakes on it, but sometimes I'd get both of them and it would still stay up there, and I didn't know how to kill it. Then, a breakthrough came.
Well done.
It killed itself.
No,
I spent longer than I'd like to admit looking at this
just
clip trying to
thought he
figure out what
did it.
happened. I can't recall a boss in a game that just committed suicide, but now I think I have it figured out. When the pilot gets angry enough, he says a prayer and writes something down in a manuscript. He then hands it to the tech priest who lives behind the launchers for warmth. This is when the grateful tech priest fires the missiles, as you can see here. After carefully studying the schematics, I realized something. You can see how the cockpit, but not from behind the launchers. So, to put it in short, he fired point blank into this pipe and blew himself up. That's one mystery solved. Next time I'll tackle the missing
Okay.
parts. All
So
these
they're
problems
idiots.
explain the bad PC reviews. If you've seen videos I've made before, you know that I usually start with the visuals and maybe a bit of story background and then move on to the rest, but I've been assaulted by issues non-stop from the beginning. Let's be honest, even if the story's incredible, that's not exactly Game of the Year material. So this could just be a horrible, horrible port of a PS2 classic. So after making calls and exchanging some notes, I got someone to help me. So to see if this is just the PC version, I have internet celebrity 8-Bit Brody to talk about the PS2 version. Is it as good as they say?
You know, I've been a fan of the Warhammer universe for a while now, and I have
You had to
fond
call
memories
in
of
help.
Fire Warrior. I never liked it as much as Halo, but I remember it being an enjoyable enough experience. Revisiting this game, however, has proven my memory to be an unreliable source, and I feel that I can no longer trust my former self with any future decisions in my life.
look at it.
Every glitch and
This.
sound issue found on the Windows version of this game can also be experienced on Sony's home console. There was even an additional auditory hiccup during the tutorial. The voiceover present in this section stalls when naming a button prompt.
Press the
On
stop.
the 8-bit,
It's as though
don't
it's
stop till you
pausing
get
to allow
enough.
for different inputs to be stated for different versions of the game, made all the more strange by the absence of this voiceover from the PC release. The night vision is somehow worse, and I even
Whoa,
discovered how to make my
that is
character
horrible.
fly using a ladder in some sort of Douglas Adamsian fashion by him seeming to simply forget how to fall. The most directly discernible divergence between the two games, however, are the controls. Let me give you a quick rundown. The joysticks are standard shooter affair. R1 and R2 are primary and alternate fire respectively. Circle is reload, pressing square swaps weapons, and X is your use command. Triangle, though, gets a special scenario mapped to him. He lobs grenades. Why wouldn't they make that one of the L buttons, you ask? Well, let me tell you, L1 is how you jump. And L2 is reserved for crouch, because of course it
Okay.
couldn't be on L3, that snaps your view into a level position, as was requested by every post-Halo console first-person shooter fan. Luckily, they let you change it in the options menu to this. So, you know, that's good. Going
you
back and
just
playing this, it's very hard to
switch
believe that a game was released with
shooting on
controls this poorly optimized 2 whole years after the first Halo hit store shelves, and only 1 short year before this very console had its own dedicated FPS in Killzone. Other games of the same era were able to implement far more ergonomic and sensible control schemes, so I have a hard time excusing the faults of Fire Warrior with age. It honestly feels like the developers,
Someone just want to be
similar
different.
to my
Some
absent
shit.
father stumbling into our basement and discovering my uncle teaching me all the wrong ways to use a garden hose, just didn't care. If you care, however, feel free to come to my channel and subscribe.
Brody.
I also have a Patreon where you can donate money to help
Brody.
feed me.
Brody,
I'm very poor.
Help
All right, we
feed
got it.
me.
All right, so it's just as bad on PS2. I'm not sure if that makes me feel better or worse. I should talk about something positive. The technical graphics are average to subpar for the time, and the levels did remind me of Red Faction a lot, but if you're into the Warhammer setting, there's some pretty neat stuff to see. Despite all the problems it had, the art team really did their homework. There's a level that takes place on an Imperial ship, and you can really feel the size of it. Visit the study, the recovery ward, the kitchens, this guy. It has the most overdramatic Windows Vista handbook and out of order sign you'll ever see. If you wanted an FPS game where you could walk around the Warhammer 40k world, this was your
Like
only
Martin
option
Luther
for a long
put that
time.
shit up
You gotta
there,
give
so-
him credit, they did a great job at it. I could see people having fond memories of this game. They might not remember how bad it got, but some of these images alone could stick with you. It's a downright shame that the level design itself is so bland. There were so many moments I thought it would get better. During a bunker level, I found a chair that had a bolter sitting on it. I knew what that meant. It was a cool way of teasing that Toyotas Maximus was around the corner ready to fight me. It was a good use of the environment telling a player about an obstacle coming up. That's a lot better than I can say for the rest of the game. They'll use the same lines over and over again.
Destroy this. You must obtain the
Destroy
key
this.
and the button. This is the place.
Who the fuck is talking?
You must destroy this.
For everything it does right, it does 5 things wrong. It reeks of something that was either on a tight budget, a short time frame, or both. There's lots of clues that QA and testing was minimal.
Whoa, what the
There are
fuck?
bizarre inclusions
Wow.
that just feel unfinished, like an Ultramarine stealth section. It lasts maybe 30 seconds.
I feel this feel like a crunch problem right here.
I did it.
Or no one
Nowhere
tested
is
this
clear
game.
and more frustrating than the final levels of the game. Honestly, up to this point, there are very few story beats to speak of. You fight the Imperium and you save a hostage. Like a different FPS game, they start teasing another threat. Remember how I mentioned that Space Marines and the human faction are very popular in 40k? Well, the story gets going, but it's centered all around them.
Greater threat.
A cancer, Admiral.
Why y'all face all fucked up?
Removed. Ah, here comes the Tau representative.
Everybody
Come onto their
face
ship, and
fucked
you
up
kill
in
the
the
Mormon
future.
Tabernacle choir's worth of guardsmen and Ultramarines.
Oh, this
They capture you
world,
in the middle of your
whatever.
slaughter, and then they let you go.
Head that way, Tau. The captain is waiting.
The evil forces of Chaos show up and do their
Okay.
thing. The Ultramarines then arm you, and
Fallout.
the rest of the game is spent helping them to defeat Chaos. Talk about a 180 in motivation. Chaos have the beefiest enemies in the game. They also carry the most deadly weapons. Alright, that's reasonable. They're the endgame enemies. So what could they do to make this unbearable? Well, they can spawn right next to you with rocket launchers.
That's
These
not
guys can
fair.
pop up at any time.
Whoa,
Chaos
what the
sorcerers can show up
fuck?
without warning, and they can teleport more. Chaos is here, and their favorite activity is teleporting behind you. Once you know where they spawn from, it gets manageable, but I'm not sure this is even trial and error. The checkpoints also become further apart, so you might have to go
That's
through long
bullshit.
stretches of button pressing and ladder climbing all over again because you got dropped by a rocket launcher. I always thought Chaos Raptors were called Raptors because they could fly and had kind of predatory bird-shaped armor. Well, the sound guys had a different interpretation. By that I mean they run at you making bird noises. I'll be honest, I'm at such a breaking point right now.
He's like, I'm done. In the end of the video, it just goes off.
Oh, please, God, no, not again. What?
Okay.
I'm just gonna say that this goes on for a while, and longer than it needs to because of, well, you know. So after walking through Tim Burton's Candyland, we get a boss.
The seed of chaos in me. Severus is trying to transfigure himself by binding with a demon.
Is that Patrick
He's trying
Stewart?
to become immortal.
Nah, that's not Patrick Stewart. For a second, it sounded like that. Nah, it's
Okay, this goes on for a while, but it dies. Finally, you get to face the real final boss. What he's saying isn't important because I can't hear it because it sounds like he's on a speaking spell. This also goes on for a while.
wow.
Sometimes my missiles go through.
It looks kind of cool, like a vulture, kind of. That was kind of anticlimactic.
Oh, it's over. The Tau and the Space Marines are all friends and the game is over. It's actually a fairly short game, but that final stretch really pads itself out. It's not the worst game I've ever played, but very subpar. If it got a digital re-release with a sound overhaul, some bug fixes, and a 4-weapon limit, I'd probably say it's worth checking out if you like the setting.
Remake this.
As it is, you're having to jump through a lot of hoops for a very mediocre experience. I'm not good at formatting wikis, or else I would put this there, so I'll link my config file in the pinned comment until someone puts it up on there. Ultimately, Fire Warrior is a curiosity. It's an interesting example of two completely different design philosophies clashing together. At the same time, it's an excellent example of an outlet hyping up an exclusive purely because it's exclusive. That's it for me. Tune in for the racing game video. Kind of racing.
It's all business. Created by Lord. That's the thing. I always find it interesting to look at. No, that frame rate dropped way down. That was at 21. Ooh. Just doing that shit again. I don't know. I did what I could, but ain't nothing else I can do. Anyway, I love looking at people's old videos. Like seeing how they've changed. Like you look at their most recent ones and you see, oh, they got a new camera, or their editing is different. Whether they, I don't know, they get better editing or they hire editors or something like that, you know. The audio is better. They might say a new mic, you know. they more detailed and stuff like that, you know. Cause I've watched people who pretty much did reaction videos to either movies or TV shows, trailers. But they started doing trailers. Now they're like a movie critic. You know, they get invited to like movie premieres and shit. And they do movie reviews of different things. But people want them to do a movie review of different things, you know. But it's interesting seeing that, you know, just the transition, like him. But yeah, that was, like I said, I've said this before. Like a lot of old games like this, or older, I should say, games, I want, especially with that Unreal Engine 5 that I saw, because I saw the Matrix experience or whatever, that looked fucking awesome. Like, I just think back when I was a kid playing, like, you know, Super Mario or like Double Dragon. I think it was a double. I never knew the name, like the numbers, because it was like 2, I think. I think it was 2. Well, I played the first one and the second. So now I remember. Yeah, like playing those old games. Even like when I was a kid, I played some Atari games. It's, you know, a little bit for my time, but it was like right in there. But it's just seeing that and where we started and where we're at now. You know, as far as the way the games look. Now you can make an argument how games play and stuff like that. People say they're too not too linear, but like they hold the player's hand too much, you know, stuff like that. Especially games that have platforming. I've seen people say that, like they hold your hand too much. Now, platform back in the day, I ain't gonna lie, that shit used to suck. It was game like one game comes to mind right now, the Tomb Raider. I remember, anyone remembers Tomb Raider? That shit. Oh my, I think it was the first one. It was like the beginning part, you in a cave and you had to like angle and jump from one rock over to another, and it was shaped like a diamond. Well, it was a square, but the way you were facing it, it looked like a diamond. And oh my god, that shit! I remember playing the demo because I used to play the shit out of demo discs like back in the day because couldn't afford to buy all those games. So I was like, I'll play the shit out of demo. But I remember playing that, and then we got it like, I don't know, a couple years later after that. But the demo had that first part. And I remember you had to angle it up right and get the right distance so you didn't jump too far or jump too short. And then I would jump over, and then you would like angle, like, cause you had to turn it like a damn tank and jump to the other part because the way it was, you couldn't just walk across it because you would fall. And then when I got good at it, I just run up there finally after hours and hours of playing that game. That part right there, even stopped playing it for like a few weeks because of it. Then just jump back into it. And because I'm like this, especially when I was younger, when I play shit and it's really hard, I just stop playing it for a while and then go back into. I've actually done that where it's like playing like a boss level or just a hard section of a game. And I'd be like, and I die a bunch. I say, you know what, it's time for a break, and I stop playing it. Maybe come back to it later in the day. Maybe come back to it in like a few days or even a week. Come back, beat it the first time. Go the first go through, whether the boss, just a hard area, beat it first time. Beat it the first time, get back on again. And I was like, what was that? Like, maybe it was because I had been playing for hours and got to that part, and my mind was like tired or something. I don't know, but like that was like that when the first Final Fantasy game. Like that game, for some reason, it was hard as hell to me to beat. And I went back. I stopped playing it because I didn't own it. Stopped playing it, and then went back. Remember, I think I spent the summer. I went back in because I played as a kid, and then went back when I moved down south, and then came back to visit my mom, my brothers. I played them out because my brother was working, so I was there all summer. So I was just like playing it and beat the game, beat Final Fantasy VII, and then beat Metal Gear Solid, which I had a hard time beating as a kid as well. I was like, I couldn't get past the because you know the part where you swim in. I got past that part, got up to the part where the helicopter was at. For some reason, I couldn't get past that to where you get in that vent. That part, I kept fucking out right there when I was young, and I just gave up. And then come back to it years later, just beat it. Like it's nothing. Just sit there, played it, just beat it. You know, like I was just maybe my reflexes got better. My brain developed or something. I don't know. But this is good. This is good. I'll put a link in the description down below so you can go check out Mandalore Gaming yourself. Go give him thumbs up, like, subscribe to his channel. You in the game reviews. Also, if you liked my reaction, you can give this video a thumbs up down below. Why did I just blank? I just completely blanked on my outro. Wow. It just like, maybe, like, comment, subscribe below. You hit that bell, you want to be notified when I upload new videos. You comment down below, share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.